These two sisters used to play very close to each other since childhood. The younger sister's name is Dal-mi, and the older sister's name is Han Ji. Later, their father could not stand being abused and scolded by his boss, so he chose to resign and start his own business. Their mother was angry and divorced their father. The older sister followed their mother, and Dal-mi followed their father. One day, the older sister, Han Ji, told Dal-mi that their mother had remarried a rich man, so Han Ji was about to follow her mother to America. Han Ji also said that Dal-mi should have followed mother. She said that Dal-mi had made the wrong choice, and Han Ji did not want to be Dal-mi's older sister anymore. Dal-mi angrily chased after her older sister, and the two got into a fight. That was the day their father successfully raised investment capital, but that was also the day he got into a car accident and passed away. From then on, Dal-mi could only rely on her grandmother. The lives of the two sisters had changed dramatically when they grew up. The pajamas that the younger sister was wearing were bought from street vendors, while the pajamas that the older sister was wearing were expensive silk pajamas. The younger sister was washing her hair in a cheap bathroom, while the older sister was leisurely soaking in the bathtub. The younger sister's breakfast was just cheap kimchi rice, while the older sister's breakfast was bread and high-class coffee. The younger sister didn't have a decent pair of shoes. Broken heels could be used again after a few taps. The older sister had a whole room filled with shoes and designer handbags. The house where the younger sister lived was just a small, ordinary house, while the older sister lived in a luxurious villa. The younger sister mostly walked when she went out, while the older sister had a private car to pick her up and drop her off. Today, Dal-mi went into the bathroom and took off one of her high heels, then used a marker to mark the peeling skin. After she finished marking, she blew on it and put it back on her foot. Then, she took off the other shoe and used the marker to mark the tip of the shoe and blew on it again to dry the ink quickly. When she finished, she looked back and saw that it wasn't bad. Then she walked out of the bathroom with great confidence. On the other side, the older sister, Han Ji, walked leisurely taking selfies, while her assistant carried her luggage and followed behind. They were all there to attend a business sharing session. Dal-mi was an audience member sitting below the stage, and Han Ji was a guest sitting above. When it came to the Q&A session, Dal-mi directly grabbed the microphone and asked Han Ji if she had ever made a selfish choice. Jae-in admitted to it, but Jae-in didn't mention the fact that she broke up with Dal-mi when they were young. When the presentation ended, the two of them went to a cafe. Han Ji looked very elegant and asked Dal-mi if she wanted to start her own business. Dal-mi said yes. Actually, the business Dal-mi was thinking about was to resign from her job and set up a hot dog stand with her grandmother. Han Ji asked Dal-mi if she had a boyfriend. Dal-mi lied that she did to show off in front of her older sister, but in fact, she was almost 30 years old and was still single. Coming to the place of the couple's heart, she only knows how to take selfies. Han Ji glanced at Dal-mi's old peeling shoes and just smiled, then asking Dal-mi's boyfriend's name. Dal-mi said that her boyfriend's name was Do-san, the youngest winner of the math Olympiad. Not only was he smart, but he also had a bright future ahead of him. Han Ji smiled again. On the way back, Han Ji invited Dal-mi to a fancy party and asked her to bring Do-san along. Han Ji said that he really wanted to see what kind of person Do-san was. Dal-mi immediately refused when she heard that, because she had never met Do-san. Just as she was about to leave, Han Ji suddenly turned around and said, "Thank younger sister." Thanks to her younger sister's blessing, she knew how right her choice was. Then, Han Ji pointed at Dal-mi's torn shoes and exposed Dal-mi's lie about her perfect boyfriend. From that, Han Ji knew enough about how miserable her younger sister's life was. After saying that, the older sister turned around and sat in the car. Dal-mi angrily clenched her fists. She quickly chased after and stopped the car. Then she went to her older sister and angrily said to send her the location and time of the party. She and Do-san would go there together. However, Dal-mi immediately regretted her stupid actions. The boy sitting in the car on the opposite side was also made to laugh by her. That boy followed Dal-mi all the way. Then he went to a hot dog stall. Standing and looking at the hot dog stall from afar, he suddenly froze. It turned out that this boy had won the prize of $100 million, but couldn't even buy a hot dog. Seeing other people eating noodles deliciously, he could only swallow his saliva. This boy wandered around the streets. It was raining heavily at night, but he didn't have a home to return to. Suddenly, the hot dog stall owner stopped him. Seeing that he was drenched in rain, she said to him, "It seems like you don't have a place to live, right?" The young man said that he had a home. The old woman told the young man to take a closer look at the cherry blossom tree over there, on which hung a birdcage. She said that she left the key in there, and after saying that, she turned and left. Although he was very skeptical, the young man still followed the old woman's words and went to the store. After looking around, he opened the newspaper on the table. There were 2 hot dogs underneath. He quickly sat down and started to eat them greedily. After he was full of energy again. It was at this time that he discovered the old woman's piggy bank, and his eyes kept looking at it. The next day, the old woman also remembered her piggy bank, which contained all the wealth she had accumulated. The old lady woke up quickly and ran to the store. Fortunately, the money tube was still there. The money was still intact. Only then could the old lady breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, the young man also came forward to remind the old lady to deposit the money in the bank. The old lady dragged him to the bank to deposit the money. After depositing the money, the young man saw the notice board of the securities company. It turned out that he had had participated in the National Simulated Investment Competition and had also won first prize. That 100 million was the virtual money he had won. Thinking of his investment ability, the young man begged the old woman to open a securities account for herself. After that, he went to the library every day to study and trade stocks. Dal-mi's parents quickly divorced, and her older sister followed mother. Dal-mi had no friends. Seeing her niece crying sadly, the old lady asked the young man to write a letter asking to be friends with Dal-mi. This young man's name was Ji-pyeong, and he didn't want to use his own name. Seeing the newspaper reporting on the math genius Do-san, the two of them decided to use the name Do-san to write the letter. Dal-mi was very happy when she received the letter, and very quickly she finished writing a reply. Just like that, they continued to contact each other through the letters left in the birdcage, and they became good friends. Dal-mi was gradually able to step out of the psychological darkness. Ji-pyeong is indeed a genius at investing. In just over a year, the amount of money in the old woman's stock account increased from 8 million won to 80 million won. Today, he wanted to withdraw this money to go to school in Seoul, but in the end he found out that the account had been deleted. He was extremely nervous. He hurriedly ran to find the old lady. Seeing that the old lady had given all the money to her son, he was extremely angry. After the old lady's son left, Jin angrily rushed to question the old lady why she gave all the money to her son. The money was earned by his own investment. He demanded that the old lady pay him back. The old lady was extremely sad and turned around, went into the store, then came out with a large bag and gave it to Ji-pyeong. Unexpectedly, there were thick stacks of money inside. It turned out that the old lady gave her son 8 million of her own money. As for Ji-pyeong's money, she had not touched it. Ji-pyeong felt very ashamed. He bowed his head, said sorry, then turned around and ran away from this place. Sitting in the train station, Ji-pyeong felt very guilty. At this moment, the old lady suddenly appeared and gave him a new pair of shoes. The old lady even bent down to help him put on his shoes. The old lady told Ji-pyeong that if you became successful in the future, don't contact me again. The old lady's words completely broke Ji-pyeong's heart. He hugged the old lady and choked up, saying that she must take good care of her health. 15 years later, Ji-pyeong had become an investor with assets worth tens of billions of won. During a business startup presentation, he recognized his old friend Dal-mi from that year, so he followed her all the way home and he met the old lady again. He went to the old lady's hot dog stall. The old lady was extremely happy when she saw Ji-pyeong. She couldn't believe her eyes. She was very happy that Ji-pyeong had succeeded. On this side, Dal-mi wanted to bring her boyfriend Do-san to the party, but even online she couldn't find any news about Do-san. She didn't know how to contact Do-san. Seeing Dal-mi's desire to find Do-san, the old lady was very worried. The old lady asked Dal-mi why she hated losing to her older sister. Dal-mi said that if she lost, it would mean that choosing to follow father was a mistake. People would sympathize with her. They would all think that she regretted it, but living with father was fun and happy. She didn't regret it at all, so she couldn't lose this time. Seeing her granddaughter crying so sadly, the old lady was heartbroken. The old lady went to find Ji-pyeong, hoping that he could help her find that person named Do-san. Coincidentally, a person named Do-san kept sending emails to Ji-pyeong, wanting to find him to invest together. Ji-pyeong was quickly able to find Do-san. At that time, he was being chased and scolded by his father, and he was scolded all day long for not being able to do anything properly. His career was unstable. Ji-pyeong advised the old lady not to look for that person named Do-san. Not only can Dal-mi not regain her appearance, but sometimes she is even laughed at by In-jae. He says is that it's still luck in the midst of misfortunes. The probability of Dal-mi finding Do-san was almost zero. However, Ji-pyeong was surprised right after that. The old lady suddenly received a call from Dal-mi saying that she had found Do-san. It turned out that because had no money left, so Do-san was preparing to sell some of the assets in the house, so he posted used items for sale online. Coincidentally, Dal-mi found him, and she confirmed through the photos that this person was the Do-san she was looking for. So Dal-mi set a time and place to meet. Finding the Do-san she had been waiting for day and night made Dal-mi extremely happy. The time for the meeting quickly arrived, and Ji-pyeong suddenly rushed over and dragged Do-san away. Do-san was about to scold this person when he suddenly discovered that this person was a famous investor. Was this to invest in them? Do-san was so excited that she couldn't speak coherently, and his hands were shaking. In the car, Ji-pyeong told Do-san to sit and read Dal-mi's letters. These letters were all written by her, and he also told Do-san the story of these letters. It took Do-san half a day to finally understand that Ji-pyeong came to him not because she wanted to invest, but because he wanted him to pretend to be Dal-mi's boyfriend. After they finished negotiating, Do-san decided to agree to help Ji-pyeong. The main condition was to help their Samsam technology enter the stock market, but Ji-pyeong refused because the company's strength was really weak. After reading all the letters, Do-san was finally moved by Dal-mi. Do-san decided to still go help Ji-pyeong. Do-san borrowed a suit, then got on his bike and started to leave. Dal-mi went to the party. She was still not familiar with situations like this, so she seemed a bit shy. Then, Dal-mi found a place that was not too prominent and away from the crowd. When Dal-mi's mother looked at her, the Dal-mi immediately immediately turned head and pretended to look away. Ji-pyeong also went to the party, saw Dal-mi standing in a corner. He was about to go help her, but unexpectedly was a step too late. Do-san appeared right in front of Dal-mi and started asking her. Seeing her mother and In-jae walking towards her, Dal-mi immediately hugged Do-san and told him to pretend to be her boyfriend. As soon as they met, In-jae started to use every means to probe and ask Do-san if he was planning to start a business. Seeing that she couldn't continue pretending anymore, Dal-mi was frustrated and about to let go when Do-san immediately grabbed her hand. He answered In-jae's question that he was a businessman. In-jae continued to ask which round his company was investing in. This question completely surprised Do-san. He basically didn't understand the language of the investment world. When everything was about to be exposed, Ji-pyeong came to help the two of them. Ji-pyeong was an extremely successful person in the investment world. Any project he set his eyes on was definitely a very good project. At this moment, In-jae was also extremely surprised. In order to avoid letting the truth be exposed, Ji-pyeong deliberately made an excuse to pull Do-san away. This pretense was extremely successful. The party ended and Do-san was about to take the bus when Ji-pyeong immediately stopped him and took Do-san to the parking lot. Ji-pyeong then told him to drive Ji-pyeong's luxury car and take Dal-mi home. Ji-pyeong told Do-san to nod and smile more. Just follow the model of a warm man. After taking Dal-mi home, he had to quickly find a reason to break up with her. Do-san drove to pick Dal-mi up and the two of them went to the riverside to have dinner together. Dal-mi asked why Do-san didn't question her actions today, because today she asked him to act out a drama in front of her older sister. Do-san said that he understood her situation at that time and also said that he followed the model of a gentle and warm man. Dal-mi was made to laugh by his straightforward answer. The two of them talked happily like that. Do-san thought everything about him was boring, but Dal-mi said he was interesting. This surprised Do-san a lot. Ji-pyeong had a hard time finding the two of them. Just looking at them made him look very anxious. Ji-pyeong quickly sent Do-san a text message telling him to quickly take Dal-mi home and cut everything off. Dal-mi thought it was a text message from Do-san's girlfriend, so she told him to quickly go home. Do-san remembered all the good things between the two of them. He was completely attracted to her to the point of not being able to pull away. He ignored Ji-pyeong's wave and immediately turned around and gave Dal-mi his business card. At the same time, he also told her that he had never had a girlfriend before. Dal-mi also said that she had never had a boyfriend either. Dal-mi was so excited when she received Do-san's message. Dal-mi was so happy that she couldn't stop laughing. Dal-mi had told her grandmother that she had met Do-san. The timing was perfect. She complimented Do-san on how he looked like a model and how he looked so elegant in a suit. But she didn't know that the person who actually wrote the letter to her was Ji-pyeong, not the current Do-san. Dal-mi went to the store and there was a huge crowd in front of her. Her coworker immediately pulled her aside and it turned out that there was a celebrity concert nearby, so there were a lot of fans gathered here. Her coworker wanted to pull Dal-mi away from the crowd, but she resolutely pushed her coworker away and tied her hair up. For Dal-mi, this was an opportunity, a great time to break her sales record. Then Dal-mi confidently walked towards the store. The inside of the store was in chaos and the staff was extremely busy. The usual tricks no longer worked. Dal-mi had a new idea. She immediately played that celebrity's song. The fans immediately started cheering loudly. In the blink of an eye, Dal-mi became the host and the order inside the store was restored. Dal-mi started to ask, "What do you want?" When she encountered an uncooperative customer, she did not hesitate to switch him out. Everything returned to normal, and in the end, that day's sales reached $10 million, setting an all-time high sales record. Dal-mi's colleagues all applauded her. Although her abilities were outstanding, the company still couldn't promote her to a full-time employee because of her education level. So Dal-mi decided to resign and prepare for her startup. She hugged a Aroid palm and quickly left the company. She sent a message to Do-san saying that she wanted to give him a Aroid palm. She was going to his company now. After learning that Dal-mi wanted to go to Do-san's shabby company, Ji-pyeong immediately panicked. If she went there, everything would be exposed. Ji-pyeong had no choice but to drive to Do-san's company in a hurry. Then, he told them to move the computer to his villa. They quickly dumped all the wires, took out the computer, plugged in the power cord, and even took down all the photos and changed the signboard. All the employees changed into elegant suits, and they instantly transformed into male gods in an instant. When Dal-mi arrived, she was surprised because the place was so big. Dal-mi said that she had something to say to Do-san. She said that she planned to quit her job and start a business like Do-san. Just by looking at everyone's reactions, you could tell how far this had gone. After Dal-mi left, Ji-pyeong said that the play should stop here. The old lady would soon tell Dal-mi the truth. However, Do-san had already fallen in love with Dal-mi. He didn't hope that Dal-mi would find out the truth. If she knew, he wouldn't have any chance. Ji-pyeong didn't think highly of their company. He thought that they didn't have any chance. So bankruptcy was only a matter of time. So Ji-pyeong advised them not to waste any more money. They should have found another way for themselves soon. However, Ji-pyeong was surprised to find that they had won the world championship in the artificial intelligence competition. This was a turning point for their company. Ji-pyeong could not bear to ruin Dal-mi's good thoughts, so he advised the old lady not to tell her the truth at this time. He would go and help Do-san become a successful person. The old lady asked Ji-pyeong was so persistent like that because he liked Dal-mi. Ji-pyeong was very confused when he heard that. In the small small shabby room of Samsung Technology Company, Doosan was also trying his best to convince the employees in the group to cooperate with Ji-pyeong. His colleagues asked him if he had feelings for Dal-mi. Meanwhile, In-jae was being ignored by her stepfather, who had handed over his entire career to his biological son. In-jae, in a fit of anger, resolutely left her stepfather and decided to go out on her own. Each of them had their own goals and had signed up for the Sandbox Venture Capital competition. The lovers' chance meeting unexpectedly turned into this scene. They quickly sat down and fixed their messy hair. Then the girl changed out of her worn-out shoes, fixed her clothes, took out her lipstick, and touched up her makeup. After finishing and picking up the books about startups, she stood up. She was almost exposed. After turning back to the bus, Dal-mi immediately asked where Doosan's car was. Doosan was immediately stunned, and it took him a while to react. Doosan lied that he had stayed at his friend's house last night, and that it was inconvenient to drive there, so he didn't come by car. That's why he was wearing that outfit. Because Dal-mi felt that this style was very friendly, so she didn't suspect anything. She suddenly said that tomorrow was his birthday and asked him if he had any plans. Doosan was stunned again, thinking that it was probably Ji-pyeong's birthday, because those letters were written by Ji-pyeong. Doosan quickly pretended that he was so busy that he forgot his birthday, so he still didn't have any plans. Dal-mi said that tomorrow she would help him fulfill his wish. After saying that, Dal-mi got on the bus, and when saw the bus gradually driving away, Doosan hesitated for a moment. He resolutely left his good friend behind and chased after the bus, then got on the bus and sat down next to Dal-mi. At this moment, Doosan's eyes were so stupid that he couldn't hide it, and he was so nervous that he didn't dare hold her hand. After Doosan returned, he touched his hand while walking, smiling foolishly. In order to pick up his girlfriend and spend his birthday together, Doosan had borrowed a bunch of branded items. This expensive car was also borrowed. The watch worth hundreds of millions of won was also borrowed. This suit also belonged to someone else. Right now, he was standing in front of Dal-mi's house. Ji-pyeong told him to be more natural while waiting. Doosan asked Ji-pyeong if he remembered what he had written in the letter, but Ji-pyeong still couldn't remember. Dal-mi appeared and said that his childhood dream was to playing cards, but Ji-pyeong couldn't remember why he had that wish. Doosan could only say that so much time had passed that he had forgotten why he had this wish. Then they decided to go back to the office to playing cards. Ji-pyeong hurriedly picked up Doosan's friends and moved the computer over. They unloaded the boxes and installed the computer. They changed the signboard to other photos and finally put on their suits. Luckily, they were temporarily finished before the two of them showed up. Dal-mi took out the snack and said that these were gifts from her grandmother to Doosan. Looking at the table full of his favorite snacks, Ji-pyeong was completely surprised. He finally remembered his wish that year. It turned out that Dal-mi had written to him about the Mid-Autumn Festival and asked what his wish was. Ji-pyeong was an orphan and was watching TV alone. He saw a family happily playing cards together on TV, so he told Dal-mi that his wish was for the whole family to sit together and play cards. Ji-pyeong was very touched. He didn't expect that the old lady and Dal-mi still remembered his childhood wish so clearly. The old lady still remembered the snacks he liked to eat. Dal-mi said that maybe it was because he loved playing with his family during the holidays so much that he had this wish, right? Ji-pyeong played happily. He had finally fulfilled his childhood wish, but he was also very sad because he had pushed Dal-mi to someone else with his own hands. At this time, he had begun to have very different feelings for Dal-mi. That night, when brought Dal-mi home, Doosan asked her why she liked him. Dal-mi replied, "Because you're my first love. The letters you wrote comforted me for a long time." Hearing that, Doosan couldn't help but feel disappointed because all of these were because he was impersonating someone else. He himself was just a stranger. He was afraid of losing Dal-mi. After returning, Doosan returned these expensive things to Ji-pyeong. Ji-pyeong said that this outfit was bought for Doosan so he could keep it, but Doosan refused because it was just doing a good deed, not an investment. Doosan told Ji-pyeong to give him advice. He would follow it unconditionally. He was determined to use his own efforts to win Dal-mi's heart. Finally, this day had come. Dal-mi followed her sister's gaze. Seeing Doosan below the stage, he was very embarrassed and lowered his head, not daring to look up. So Dal-mi went down the stage to find Doosan. She said that he had a very good office and also had a lot of investment capital. Why did he appear here? Doosan was extremely embarrassed. He didn't know how to answer her. In-jae immediately went to use her phone to scan the QR code on Doosan's employee card and found out that he couldn't get investment capital and only won first place in the coda competition. Then, In-jae let out a disdainful smile. Doosan was so nervous that he clenched his fists. He held back for a long time before he could say anything. First, he apologized to Dal-mi for lying to her and disappointing her. They were participating in the Zenbox Venture Capital competition. The first stage was the CEO selection challenge. Only those who passed the test were qualified to be CEOs and could choose members to form a team to participate in the second round of the competition. Dal-mi and In-jae both passed the test and went on stage to receive the CEO t-shirt. As for Doosan's team, they failed the test. If no CEO selected them for their team, they could only withdraw from the competition. At this point, they just needed to invite Dal-mi to be their CEO and form a new startup team. Then they could continue participating in the competition. At this moment, to challenge Dal-mi, In-jae also made a similar proposal. In-jae wanted to invite Do-san's team to become her development staff. One was a new CEO, and the other was a mature and very capable CEO. How should they choose? The whole team immediately pulled Do-san aside and reminded him not to let his love affect him. There was too much of a difference between an amateur player and a professional player. Do-san told his teammates that one wanted to join them, the other wanted to invite them. The person they were looking for was a comrade, not a boss, so they had only one choice. Do-san successfully convinced his teammates. At this moment, In-jae told Dal-mi that Do-san was pretending to be talented in front of you. Aren't you mad at him? Dal-mi said she wasn't mad because she had also wanted to pretend to be talented in front of someone. After the negotiation, Do-san walked in front of Dal-mi and held out his hand to her. He asked her if she would agree to be the director of their Sam technology. Dal-mi immediately agreed. Next was the second phase of the competition. They just had to come up with a feasible business plan and use 3 minutes to convince the investors. After discussing, Dal-mi's group decided on the topic, using the learning method to verify the authenticity of the notes. However, their creative ideas were all heard by this pink-haired girl. This girl was a technician in In-jae's team. She suggested that In-jae should also use this topic. The technicians in In-jae's team all graduated from MIT, and they had experience participating in this venture capital competition many times. They quickly succeeded in establishing a viable business model. Do-san's team was not so lucky. They repeated it many times but still could not succeed. In the end, they had no choice but to rewrite the framework. They had to start over. This was a big project, so if they could not succeed this time, their challenge would be considered a complete failure. They could only withdraw from the competition, and Dal-mi would also admit defeat to her sister. In the bathroom, the two sisters once again had a conflict with each other. In-jae said that Dal-mi's programmer seemed to be incompetent, and said that Dal-mi always made the wrong choice. Dal-mi got angry and told In-jae to shut up. She said that it was still too early to conclude anything. It was still unclear who won and who lost, even though she said that she didn't know what to do. Seeing Do-san, she hurriedly ran to him. She nervously asked how the results were. After knowing that the results were out and that the accuracy rate had exceeded 99.8%, she was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. She unconsciously leaned on Do-san's shoulder and burst into tears. She had endured so much hardship. Now, all they had left was the presentation. Whether it would be successful or not would be decided at this moment. However, at this moment there was a disagreement among the teammates. They did not agree to let Dal-mi present because Dal-mi's academic ability was not high. They thought that she could not explain the knowledge of artificial intelligence, so they suggested that Do-san should present. But Do-san did not agree. He insisted on letting Dal-mi present. While they were still arguing, Ji-pyeong suddenly appeared. He said without hesitation that Dal-mi should present. Although it was not guaranteed that they would succeed, if they were to give their presentations, it would really ruin everything. What they had failed to do for the past 2 years, it was impossible for them to suddenly succeed today. Seeing that the two of them still had opinions, Ji-pyeong assured them that if Dal-mi's presentation failed, he would use his personal name to invest in them. Only then would the matter stop there. Ji-pyeong went to find Dal-mi and helped her revise the draft for her upcoming presentation. He also did not forget to remind her of a few points to pay attention to. Dal-mi's presentation was extremely successful and received a round of applause from everyone. She also received praise from the judges. Everything seemed to be going very smoothly. It seemed like they had hope of entering the Zenbox startup base. Next was In-jae's presentation. Her topic was exactly the same as Dal-mi's group, but the direction was very different. Dal-mi's direction was to determine the authenticity of the notes, and In-jae's was to create new fonts based on the notes. The judges immediately proposed that the two groups compete to use Dal-mi's system to recognize the fonts created by In-jae's system to see if it could recognize them. This was exactly a battle between two sisters. The hall immediately fell silent. After a while of operation, Dal-mi's system could not recognize the newly created fonts. They had lost. Do-san sadly lowered his head. The pen in his hand had broken in half. Dal-mi glanced at her older sister and sadly closed her eyes. It seemed that they would have to admit defeat in this competition. The female teammate had also finished packing and was preparing to leave. Dal-mi was so tired that she fell asleep on the sofa in the lobby. Ji-pyeong couldn't help but walk over and sit down next to her when he saw this. Seeing Dal-mi in a deep sleep, he remembered what happened when he was little. When he turned around, Dal-mi had already sat up. She was sitting motionless and looking at him non-stop. Ji-pyeong was embarrassed, so he made an excuse and quickly left. Dal-mi immediately chased after Ji-pyeong. She wanted to ask him clearly about everything. Why did he want to help them, even if he had to lie? Just as Ji-pyeong was about to answer her, Do-san ran over. He informed her that they had entered the Zenbox. Sure enough, Samsung Technology Company was on the list. Dal-mi was so excited that she ran straight into Do-san's arms, completely forgetting Ji-pyeong's existence. Ji-pyeong was extremely disappointed. He could only turn around and leave quietly. Suddenly, Dal-mi remembered Ji-pyeong. She left and wanted to find Ji-pyeong to ask clearly about everything. Do-san pulled her back and said that he was the one who begged Ji-pyeong to help them, because he and Ji-pyeong were as close as brothers. Doosan then went to find Ji-pyeong and said that I had already talked to Dal-mi on your behalf. Doosan said that I had lied to Dal-mi, that it was because you and me were very close that you was helping we in this competition. Ji-pyeong heard that and suddenly felt extremely disappointed. However, on the first day of joining the sandbox, they fought with each other. Ji-pyeong as the advisor felt extremely disappointed, so he stood up and walked out. Dal-mi immediately chased after him. She wanted to explain to Ji-pyeong, but he directly said that they had just received $100 million in business subsidies and were already fighting like this. If they wanted to grow to tens of billions of dollars, then it was clearly just a fantasy. Furthermore, there was a more important problem, which was that she couldn't even resolve this dispute over shares. As the representative, she was the biggest problem. Seeing Chul-san and Yong-san leave in anger, along with In-jae's ridicule, Dal-mi felt very defeated. She recalled what happened early this morning. There was a company just because of a share dispute that the friendship of more than 20 years has completely ended. At that time, she didn't think so. She thought that their friendship was too fragile and her company would never be like that because everyone was very united with each other. Everyone's shares would be divided equally. Everyone was very satisfied and she was very proud of that. Unexpectedly, Ji-pyeong directly gave her a warning blow. The list of shareholders is 1 million points. He dares to guarantee that after looking at this list of shareholders, there will be no fools in this world who will accept investment. There won't even be one person like that. This kind of equal division of shares will only become a stumbling block for the representative. If there is even one person who disagrees, nothing can be done. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Doosan said that he wouldn't let that happen. Their friendship would last forever and would never change. But if those words really worked, then no one would get divorced anymore. If the WP people got divorced, everything would end as soon as the two broke up. But the company is not like that. If they turned their backs on each other, the only ones who would suffer the loss would be the investors' money. No investor would be able to take such a risk. They were forced to concentrate their shares in the hands of the most important person, at least 60% of the shares. Dal-mi returned to her office. Doosan was currently staring blankly at the shareholder list. He didn't expect that his company, like everyone else, would encounter so many problems on the first day. They all felt very sad. On the way back home, Doosan comforted Dal-mi that she shouldn't worry too much about this. He would think of a way to convince his teammates, and he had also decided to let her be the company's representative. He said that he wouldn't regret his choice this time and encouraged Dal-mi to believe in him. Dal-mi also knew that she still had many shortcomings, so she started to update her knowledge about CEOs. If she didn't understand anything, she would send a message to Ji-pyeong. She was so engrossed that she didn't know when it was already morning. Ji-pyeong was scared when he woke up. Just one night, there were 416 messages from Dal-mi. Ji-pyeong told Dal-mi that there is no perfect CEO in this world. The most important thing is to learn how to make choices. No matter which choice you make, you will be scolded. But if she was afraid of being scolded, she wouldn't be able to make any decisions and would become a failed representative. A good person or a CEO, she could only choose one of the two. She couldn't have both. After a silent evening, Chul-san and Yong-san had also thought things through. Although the crisis this time had been resolved, everyone agreed to concentrate the shares on Cho Dal-mi, but Dal-mi decided to give all the shares to Doosan. After that, she and Doosan would stand on the same side. Although this wasn't the most ideal plan, it was still able to successfully convince Ji-pyeong. The $100 million funding would soon be transferred to the account. After experiencing this incident, Doosan told Ji-pyeong that he planned to frankly admit everything to Dal-mi today. He had to resolve the hidden crises first. Ji-pyeong told him not to say it yet. If he told her the truth, his relationship with Dal-mi and even Samsung Technology would end. But Doosan said that there probably wouldn't be any changes. Today, Dal-mi invited Doosan to her house to play. When they entered the house and saw each other, both Grandma and Doosan were completely surprised. They had just met each other in the hospital during the day. Grandma's eyesight was getting worse and worse. Soon Grandma would not be able to see anymore. Just as Doosan was about to speak, Grandma quickly signaled him not to mention this. Then Grandma turned to Dal-mi and told her to go out and buy soy sauce, while the two of them stayed behind to talk. Grandma told Doosan not to tell Dal-mi about this. If Dal-mi found out about this, she would cry loudly again. Grandma wanted to see Dal-mi smile more often. When Dal-mi smiled, her eyes were the most beautiful. Just look a little more. Even if Grandma becomes blind in both eyes, Grandma will have no regrets. Doosan originally wanted to confess the truth to Dal-mi, but now he didn't know how to tell her. Ji-pyeong remembered Doosan saying that he wanted to confess everything to Dal-mi, and Doosan's words to just wait and see. Ji-pyeong was extremely angry. He immediately turned the car around and went straight to Dal-mi's house. Coincidentally, he met Dal-mi, who had just returned from buying soy sauce. Dal-mi was extremely surprised to see Ji-pyeong suddenly come here. Looking at Dal-mi's attitude, Ji-pyeong knew that Doosan had not told her the truth yet. He could only continue to pretend to be Doosan's close brother and pretend not to know grandmother. After bowing to grandmother, he said that he had something urgent to discuss with Doosan. Doosan was a little scared when heard that. Doosan immediately hid behind grandmother and then hurriedly said that I would do as you said, so you didn't need to worry. Ji-pyeong didn't know what to say anymore. He was about to turn around and leave when Dal-mi invited him to stay for dinner with the family. After dinner, Dal-mi saw the two of them off. Ji-pyeong told Dal-mi that he had answered all 461 of her questions and sent them via email. Ji-pyeong reminded her to check her email. Seeing Dal-mi's admiring gaze towards him, Ji-pyeong turned to look at Do-san provocatively. Seeing something stuck to Dal-mi's hair, Ji-pyeong was about to step forward, but thought that his current status was not appropriate, so he could only withdraw his hand. Do-san was not willing to be weak. He walked up to Dal-mi and told her that she was the CEO holding 71% of the shares. He also affirmed that he was completely on her side, so don't worry. Then he reached up and took the thread stuck to Dal-mi's hair. Seeing the intimate actions between Do-san and Dal-mi, Ji-pyeong also felt very uncomfortable. Sitting in the car, Ji-pyeong laughed at Do-san, saying that he wanted to tell the truth about those letters, but why didn't have the courage to say it. Do-san was a bit embarrassed. He wanted to get off the car and take the bus home, but Ji-pyeong said, "I wanted to take you home." When Do-san said that he had feeling to Dal-mi, now Ji-pyeong immediately stopped the car. The next day, the company decided to do the Eyes project. Everyone felt that this project was very good, but unexpectedly, Ji-pyeong opposed it. He frankly said that this project had no meaning at all. The project was for the visually impaired, so it was impossible to make money through advertising campaigns, and it also required a lot of money. The more users, the more money it would cost. Who would agree to invest in such a project? In order to bring happiness to others, they would likely suffer disadvantaged, so they had to consider it carefully. But Dal-mi was very persistent because this project was very meaningful. Dal-mi begged Ji-pyeong not to tell Do-san about this so that he could focus on research and development. She would think of a way to raise funds herself to solve the financial problem. They decided to accept a project from Morning Group first. If they just proposed a solution, it would be $50 million. If they helped build it, it would be $300 million. If they helped them run and manage it, it would be over $1 billion. If the project was accepted, the company's survival problem would be solved. The funding for the Eye project would also be solved. Do-san was very worried about Dal-mi because the representative of Morning Group was her older sister's stepfather and also her mother's current legal husband. Dal-mi didn't want to meet this man, but to find a sponsor for the project, she could only risk it once. As long as the project could go smoothly, it would be worth it, but didn't expect that this company would be required to take 100,000 photos. Once they collected enough data, the solution to the problem would be implemented by their development team. Isn't this treating developers like them too badly? Do-san clenched his fists in anger. He told the delegate that they should find a part-timer to collect the data, but the delegate said that hiring a part-timer to take 100,000 photos was too expensive, and those people didn't know what to take. It would be better to let artificial intelligence experts like Do-san's group do it. This person also said that there was nothing on the Do-san group's website and advised Do-san's group to put their company logo on the homepage and mark it as a cooperative enterprise with Morning Group. This matter alone was worth more than $50 million. Representative Do-jung was even more outrageous. He said that the reason he chose their company was because of Dal-mi's mother. He said that if Dal-mi had chosen to be like his daughter and follow mother, he and she would have become father and daughter by now. He also said that she would have suffered a lot living with her father. Do-san could not bear it any longer when he heard these words. He immediately went and directly smashed Mr. Do-jung's nameplate. He turned to Dal-mi and told her that he could no longer do this project after saying that he resolutely turned around and left. Dal-mi also hurriedly followed Do-san outside, leaving Do-jung still bewildered. Dal-mi chased Do-san to the rooftop. Do-san really did not want to see Dal-mi humiliated, so he begged her to give up this project. Seeing how stubborn Dal-mi was, Ji-pyeong didn't stop her any further. Ji-pyeong brought her a list of companies with large social responsibility funds. These were all companies that cared about the welfare of the disabled, or companies that needed to improve their image. They were all very interested in projects like the Eyes. Dal-mi visited each one on the list, but they all told her to go home and wait for more information. As for the other companies, they said that their budget for this year had already been used up. She even went to the far suburbs with her clients just to have a chance to meet them, but she still got nothing. Despite her best efforts, she still couldn't attract any investment. Meanwhile, Do-san and his colleagues on this side, after many days of hard work, the Eyes project had finally completed the test and would soon be launched on the market. Everyone was extremely excited and looking forward to it. Dal-mi was still worried because only she knew that the annual cost of 1,000 users was about $30 million, so the annual cost of 10,000 users was $300 million. But now she still hadn't received any investment. She was finding things too difficult right now. The Eyes project only had a few downloads, so everyone was feeling very disappointed. But only Dal-mi was secretly happy. She happily invited everyone to go out for a beer, and she was so drunk that she didn't know anything anymore. She didn't expect that life would slap her in the face so quickly and hard. Early the next morning, in order to support the Eyes project, the baseball star who participated in the top show tried to introduce the Eyes project to everyone. He also said that this was good news for the visually impaired. After seeing the news, Ji-pyeong was so surprised that he fell off the treadmill heavily. The number of downloads for the Eyes project increased rapidly. In no time, there were 30,000 downloads. Everyone was very excited, but Dal-mi was completely completely devastated and said that 30,000 people a day, so it would be $1 billion a year. So where would they get the money? Everyone happily went to KTV to celebrate, but Dal-mi looked depressed. There was nothing more to regret in life. Dal-mi looked at the list in her hand. Now only Morning Group was left that Dal-mi had not gone to ask for investment, but she really didn't want to beg them anymore. She was thinking about giving up the Eyes project. But right at this moment, Doosan told her that her grandmother's eyesight was getting worse and worse. Soon her grandmother would not be able to see anymore. Dal-mi returned home, originally wanting to pretend to laugh and talk like usual, but in the end, she couldn't help but burst into tears. The next day, Dal-mi begged In-jae to take her to see Do-jung. Dal-mi also said that if In-jae did not agree, she would kneel down and beg this older sister. After arriving at Do-jung's resting room, the two of them were extremely stunned. Do-san was kneeling in front of Do-jung. Because Do-san had broken Do-jung's name tag last time, Do-jung now wanted to sue him for property damage and threatened that if they did not reconcile, he would leave a criminal record in the future. Because he did not want Dal-mi to worry about him, Do-san quietly came here to beg Chairman Do-jung to forgive him. Do-jung asked Dal-mi why she came here. Dal-mi said that she wanted to win the company's community fund budget, but Do-jung said that if the two of them knelt down and begged, he would reconsider. He said that he just wanted to teach the two of them a lesson and not to act like that in the future. No one can predict anything in this life. Unexpectedly, Dal-mi responded with the same sentence. After speaking, Dal-mi took out her phone and opened the recording. It turned out that the last time went to see Do-jung. Ji-pyong had sent a message to Dal-mi and told her to record the conversation in case of emergency. So she secretly opened her phone and recorded the entire conversation. Unexpectedly, it actually worked now. Hearing the recording, Do-jung was momentarily speechless. There were already many young people outside, and quite a few reporters had also appeared. If they had this, there would definitely be many interesting articles published. Chairman Do-jung was a supporter of the dream of empowering young people, but behind back was a completely opposite person. This would definitely immediately become a hot search. Dal-mi took this opportunity to ask him to use the Morning Group's community fund to invest in her project, and he also had to reconcile with Do-san. Do-jung was so angry that he drank the whole bottle of mineral water in one go. In-jae also looked at her and smiled in approval. He could only reluctantly agree and announced that this year the Morning Group's community fund would invest in the Eye project of Samsung Technology. Ji-pyong suddenly stopped the car in front of Do-san, then gave him the hair tie that Dal-mi accidentally left behind. Ji-pyong said that he discovered it while washing the car. Do-san immediately asked if she had gotten in the car, but Ji-pyong didn't say anything, just pulled up the car door and drove away with a very satisfied smile. Do-san could only rub her head in confusion, then kick the bicycle parked nearby. Seeing Do-san's reaction through the rearview mirror, Ji-pyong smiled smugly. However, all of this was just Ji-pyong's imagination. Only then did Ji-pyong calm down and stop the car in front of Do-san, then give Dal-mi's hair tie to him. Unexpectedly, Do-san did not react as Ji-pyong had imagined. Ji-pyong was disappointed and could only hit the steering wheel to vent his anger. In fact, he did not know that his goal had been achieved. After going outside, Do-san quietly looked down at the hair tie in his hand to the point of being dumbfounded, and even called his best friend to go out drinking with him. In the end, he got so drunk that he passed out. Young-san and Chul-san had no choice but to call Dal-mi and tell her to take Do-san in tonight, because if he came home like that, he would definitely be beaten up by his father. If Do-san had stayed the night at their house, his father would have quickly come to find him. While they were waiting for the bus, they unexpectedly met Ji-pyong there. Ji-pyong then took them home, and of course he was the one who carried Do-san up to his room. In the end, Ji-pyong was so tired that he couldn't speak, and Do-san threw up all over him. Just as everyone was about to eat, Do-san suddenly came out of his room with bewildered, asking why he was here and where his best friend was. After learning everything, Do-san quickly apologized, and Dal-mi said it was okay. Dal-mi then asked Do-san if he wanted to stay the night. Ji-pyong heard that and also asked to stay the night. Only then did Ji-pyong realize that he liked Dal-mi. Early the next morning, when it was time for breakfast, everyone was surprised to find that Do-san had left without saying goodbye. Just then, Dal-mi's phone suddenly rang. It was Do-san calling. Do-san wanted to ask Dal-mi out on a date and bring her grandmother along. Ji-pyong was extremely disappointed. He stood in front of Do-san. Do-san quickly made a fake move and dodged past Ji-pyong. Ji-pyong still couldn't accept it. Do-san even honked the horn repeatedly. It turned out that Do-san had read Dal-mi's reply to the feedback comment about the Eyes project. He knew that she had a wish, which was that she hoped that before her grandmother completely lost sight, she could take her grandma to many places to see many beautiful sights. So Do-san rented a car to take the two of them to see the beautiful sea. Dal-mi sat reading the business plan that Ji-pyong had revised when she suddenly discovered that his handwriting was very familiar. Dal-mi hurriedly looked for the letters from 15 years ago and discovered that the handwriting was exactly the same. She took out the lecture manuscript that Ji-pyong had edited for her. The handwriting was exactly like the letters from 15 years ago. She remembered that Ji-pyong and Do-san's birthdays were even on the same day. The next day, Dal-mi wanted to ask Do-san what was going on, but in the end, she didn't dare to say it. In the end, she had to change the subject. While reporting on the project situation, the Eyes saw Ji-pyong's familiar handwriting, so Dal-mi kept staring staring at him. Ji-pyeong even thought there was something on his face. Seeing that Dal-mi was starting to feel suspicious about Do-san and Ji-pyeong, Grandma was extremely worried. Coincidentally, Ji-pyeong had just arrived here, and suddenly Grandma remembered a letter when Dal-mi wanted to find Do-san to ask him to pretend to be her boyfriend. The letter she wrote to Do-san was placed in the birdcage where the two of them had exchanged letters before. Grandma had no choice but to ask Ji-pyeong to get that letter and deliver it to Do-san so that Dal-mi would no longer feel suspicious and neither of them would suffer any more pain. But Ji-pyeong did not agree to do so. He discovered that he liked Dal-mi. He wanted to tell Dal-mi that the person named Do-san was fake. Grandma was very sad. Grandma did not agree to let him do so. Now Dal-mi and Do-san are dating and they support each other very well. At that time when Grandma asked Ji-pyeong if he liked Dal-mi, he clearly said no. Now it's too late. Grandma said you can't do that. Ji-pyeong said why not? Why can Do-san but not me? Returning to his car, although Ji-pyeong felt very sad, his mood gradually calmed down. Ji-pyeong immediately sent a message to grandmother and apologized for his anger just now. He also told her that he would immediately go get the letter Dal-mi sent to Do-san and give it to Do-san. After getting the letter, he couldn't control himself, so he opened it and read it. After reading it, when he looked up, Ji-pyeong was surprised to find Dal-mi in front of him. It turned out that Dal-mi had mistakenly taken her grandmother's phone when she went out this morning. After receiving Ji-pyeong's message, she felt extremely curious, so she came here. Although she had been suspicious for a long time, when she actually saw Ji-pyeong appear here, she was still extremely surprised. At this time, Do-san coincidentally called Dal-mi. Dal-mi immediately asked him if he remembered the address where they used to exchange letters 15 years ago. Do-san stuttered and couldn't answer her question. Dal-mi immediately hung up the phone. Despite Do-san's repeated calls, no one answered. Dal-mi was extremely agitated. She begged Ji-pyeong to tell her the truth. Who wrote those letters 15 years ago? Ji-pyeong could only tell Dal-mi the whole truth, that her grandmother asked him to write those letters. Her grandmother wanted her to have another friend. The name Do-san was just a name the two of them saw in the newspaper. It was also the Do-san he found. Ji-pyeong then told Do-san to pretend that he was the one who wrote the letters and attend the party that night. Dal-mi was completely devastated. It turned out that everything from beginning to end was a lie, a complete lie. Do-san found Dal-mi at the bus stop. He also frankly admitted everything to her. At first, he thought it would only take one day, but he didn't expect that he would end up falling in love with her. Then because of his greed, he didn't want to tell the truth. Just like that, things dragged on day after day. Do-san said that he wanted to be Dal-mi's ideal type, but he couldn't do it. Unexpectedly, Dal-mi said that even she didn't know what kind of person she loved. After saying that, she turned around and left this place. At night, Dal-mi sometimes holds a baseball and looks absent-minded. Sometimes held the letter from 15 years ago, lost in thought. At this moment, she didn't know who she loved. She cried bitterly. Finally, the day of the presentation came. If they succeeded, they would be able to win the $50 million prize money, along with investments from countless investors. If they failed, they could only leave the race. The first to take the stage was In-jae's company. Her presentation was extremely successful. In-jae said that she was looking for a global partner and hoped to have the opportunity to cooperate with 2STO. Alex from 2STO Group said that her presentation was very impressive and they were also very interested, but they were considering another group of candidates. Alex wanted to listen to the other candidates' presentations before making a decision. Next up was Samsung Technology Company. Dal-mi's presentation was also extremely successful, but their accuracy was only 92.4%, while In-jae's was 93.2%. Their team was a little bit behind In-jae's team. Alex felt a little disappointed, so Do-san stepped in to explain that accuracy shouldn't be seen only in numbers, but the application environment is also very important. We tried to find a balance between high accuracy and reducing the application size. The judges asked In-jae's team to come back on stage to let the two teams compete again, and asked them to use the oldest microcontroller to test to see if they could proceed normally. After a while of busy operation, the program of Samsung Technology Company was still able to run smoothly, but the program of In-jae's team could not run normally. The smoothness of the running Samsung Technology program made the judges extremely surprised. The result was completely beyond their expectations. This time, Samsung Technology Company won. Everyone in the team hugged each other happily, finally winning once. This time, they really won, and won spectacularly. Soon they received an offer to buy back the application from 2STO. 2STO wanted to pay $3 billion to buy back their company. The condition was that they could work at the company's headquarters for 3 years. After hearing this price, everyone immediately lost their composure. This was a number that they would never dare to imagine in their entire life. After seeing the employees of 2STO's off, they were so excited that they couldn't hide their joy. It was as if they had reached the pinnacle of their lives. $3 billion and could work at the Silicon Valley headquarters of 2STO's. The temptation was really too great. Everyone was full of aspirations for the future, and they had already started discussing what English name to choose. Should they sign up for a business English class? However, when they thought about the fact that the name Samsung Technology was no longer there, everyone couldn't help but feel a little regretful. They returned to the old office where they had just started together without prior arrangement. In addition to nostalgia, they also thought about the future together, even planning to start a business again in 3 years. They would would drive autonomous cars together. The next day after Ji-pyeong learned that Alex wanted to buy it back instead of investing in this project, he rushed to the company to stop them from signing the contract. As a result, Do-san and Dal-mi had already gone to Alex's place. After Ji-pyeong finished reading the copy of the contract, he immediately took out his phone and called Dal-mi to stop them from signing the contract. Yong-san immediately snatched the phone from his hand and deleted Dal-mi's number. He told Ji-pyeong not to stop them from getting rich. Ji-pyeong said that this was a typical talent acquisition. Alex did not see the value in their company at all, just wanted to hire them to work as engineers for his company. Once the signing was completed, their team would be disbanded on the spot. Except for the technical staff, the other members would be fired immediately. After saying that, they hurriedly drove to Alex's place, but it was too late. When Ji-pyeong arrived at Alex's place, Dal-mi and Do-san had already signed the contract. They also happened to pass each other on both sides of the elevator. Sure enough, on the first day after the company was acquired, their entire team was disbanded, and Alex only brought 3 technicians to the US. Dal-mi and the remaining female colleague were immediately fired. The Eyes project would also be completely terminated. Do-san was furious and asked if this was a scam. Do-san remembered that Alex had said he would take them all in, but Alex said that was not what was written in the contract. Oral promises were not legally binding. Alex advised them to think of the positive aspects. The company was going to be acquired at a good price, and everyone would have money and the opportunity to gain experience in Silicon Valley. However, Do-san did not agree. He thought that they should just terminate the contract. They just act as if nothing had happened, but Alex advised Do-san not to act on impulse. Since the contract had been signed, it could not be arbitrarily cancelled. According to the contract, they would have to pay 6 billion in damages. Hearing the compensation amount of 6 billion, Dal-mi lowered her head sadly. Do-san did not know what to say. He really did not want to hurt Dal-mi, but he had no other choice. Ji-pyeong walked over, he looked at Dal-mi, then slowly said that since the contract had been signed, then they should accept the truth. 2 STOs bought their company for $3 billion, not because they had their eyes on the Eyes project, but because they had their eyes on the accuracy of their solutions. These words really hurt the listener. Do-san agitatedly asked Ji-pyeong to stop talking, but Ji-pyeong had no intention of stopping. Dal-mi was completely devastated. Yesterday they were still full of hope for the future. They were still thinking and discussing together and naming English and even signing up for a business English class. Why did things suddenly turn out like this? Do-san chased Ji-pyeong outside, then rushed over and grabbed him by the collar. The two of them didn't say a word and just started fighting. After the fight, Ji-pyeong told Do-san to give up the Eyes project and advised Do-san to use his good technology to make a profit. But unexpectedly, Do-san begged Ji-pyeong for help because developing the Eyes project was for Dal-mi's grandmother. Grandma's current eyesight wasn't good. Grandma wouldn't be able to see anything soon. Ji-pyeong was completely stunned. He hurriedly went to grandmother's hot dog shop. Seeing that grandmother could no longer read the bill clearly and could not even leave the Eyes app to calculate the total money, Ji-pyeong could not help but shed tears. Seeing that grandmother had finished counting, he hurriedly reached out his hand to dry his tears. He forced a smile and walked over to her. Dal-mi had just returned home when she saw Ji-pyeong coming out of there. Dal-mi wanted to invite Ji-pyeong out for dinner, and she hoped he could give her some advice on what she should do next. Ji-pyeong said that what he was about to say might be a bit harsh. First, the contract itself was fine, and second, Dal-mi's group was facing off against 2 STOs. That was like hitting a rock with an egg, so his advice was for Dal-mi's group to accept reality and cooperate with the 2 STOs. Dal-mi didn't know what to say. They really had no better way. On this side, Do-san's mother asked him how he and Dal-mi were doing, but since Dal-mi found out that Ji-pyeong was the one who wrote the letter, he had no way of knowing what Dal-mi was thinking. Do-san also wanted to know. Coincidentally, Dal-mi had just sent a message asking him if he had slept yet. Do-san was about to reply that he hadn't slept yet, but Do-san's mother immediately told him to delete it and take off his coat. Then she raised her hand and beat him up, saying that he didn't understand anything about girls. Then she explained that Dal-mi meant for him to call her back. Sure enough, their phone calls started with distinguishing the types of medicine that grandma had, and then they kept talking about one thing after another. Neither of them wanted to hang up. Early the next morning, Do-san hid outside Dal-mi's house, preparing to arrange a chance meeting between the two of them, because a few days ago, Dal-mi had told Do-san that she still couldn't figure things out. She felt very hurt when facing Do-san and Ji-pyeong, so this time she told them not to meet each other alone anymore. So in order to see Dal-mi, Do-san could only pretend to meet her by chance. When Dal-mi took the initiative to say hello, Do-san pretended and said it was a coincidence. He said that he knew there was a good English cram school here, so he planned to come here to ask around. Unexpectedly, he met her. Dal-mi smiled slightly. It seemed that she had seen through Do-san's little thoughts. However, they did not expect that the change would come so quickly. When they returned to the company, their team had suddenly disbanded. Dal-mi and her female colleague had also been fired. The next morning, Dal-mi wore a new dress and spent time meticulously applying makeup. She went to Do-san's house very early because today was his birthday. They had arranged for today's meeting in advance, but unexpectedly, Do-san had actually forgotten about his birthday. It was only natural that because so many things had happened recently, he had put all his attention on solving the contract issue. Do-san told Dal-mi not to worry too too much. Sitting on the bus, Do-san was still engrossed in reading a book about corporate litigation. When he read about a similar case, he turned to discuss it with Dal-mi, but she was completely uninterested in these things. Dal-mi took Do-san to an extremely high-class French restaurant, but Do-san still refused to let go of his unfinished work. All he could think about was Dal-mi, and he wanted to cancel his contract with 2STO. Dal-mi said that the odds of a computer genius like him appearing in this world were very low, so she wanted Do-san to go to Alex's company 2STO to develop his talent, because if he followed Alex, his future would be bright. She advised him to ignore her. Do-san didn't want to continue listening to her, so he quickly opened the book in front of him. Dal-mi immediately reached out to close the book, and she continued to advise Do-san to seize this opportunity. Do-san finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He said that Dal-mi and he meeting was fate. Do-san took the book and went out first. Dal-mi chased after him and tried to persuade him again, but Do-san didn't want to give up Dal-mi and the Eyes project, whether it was the Sandbox Venture Capital headquarters or the cramped old attic office. He said that he just wanted to stay here. Seeing this, Dal-mi had no choice but to use her last resort. She said that Do-san wasn't the one who wrote her letters when she was little, so there was no need to remember her anymore. These words really hurt Do-san. The two sisters Dal-mi and In-jae had always secretly fought each other every time they met, but this time, Dal-mi suddenly came to apply for her sister's company. Seeing Dal-mi come here for an interview, all the colleagues in In-jae's company were stunned. They all stared at Dal-mi curiously. In-jae asked her what he was doing here. Dal-mi didn't explain much and directly put her CV on the table. She sat down and said clearly that she was here to apply. In-jae didn't say anything but sat down leisurely. In-jae wanted to know what her younger sister wanted to do. In-jae asked why Dal-mi wanted to apply to this company. Seeing that the director had spoken, the others could only settle down. Dal-mi said that what In-jae said during the presentation that day left a strong impression on her. Dal-mi said that In-jae's goal was to make this world more progressive and developed. These words were exactly the same as what her father had said 15 years ago, because her father told her that he quit his job not just because he was beaten by his boss, but because he was preparing for that better world. At that moment, Dal-mi suddenly realized that perhaps In-jae and she had the same goal. Very quickly, Dal-mi was recruited as the vice president of In-jae's company. Not long after, they established a separate subsidiary, Chungmyeong Company, with Dal-mi as the director and in charge of the new company's business. At this time, on the other side of the ocean, Do-san's team and his colleagues, responsible for the Smart City project of 2STOs, have also achieved very good results. Ji-pyeong has also been promoted from team leader to director. 3 years later, Dal-mi invited Ji-pyeong to her house for Mid-Autumn Festival. She also asked him to come over a little early to help cook. In the evening, the four of them were like a happy family, making mooncakes together. They cooked together and played cards together very happily. While making skewers, Ji-pyeong was so tired that he fell asleep. Dal-mi immediately went to cover him with a blanket. When Grandma came out of the room, Dal-mi quickly signaled Grandma to lower her voice. Seeing everything, Ji-pyeong wore a happy smile and continued to pretend to be asleep. When Dal-mi woke up in the middle of the night, she suddenly discovered that Ji-pyeong had woken up and was still sitting making skewers. She immediately went to sit next to him. Ji-pyeong wanted to help grandmother open a hot dog shop, but Dal-mi turned him down because it wasn't the right time yet, because Dal-mi wants to open her own hot dog shop for her grandmother. Ji-pyeong said that he hoped he wouldn't make her feel uncomfortable. He hoped that whenever she was tired and having a hard time, the first person she would think of would be him. Ji-pyeong felt that the feelings between him and Dal-mi had developed another step, so he bought a gift for her. Ji-pyeong took the gift and went to a secluded place and then started rehearsing how to start the conversation. He thought of countless reasons and excuses, and finally he mustered up his courage and walked out. On the way to find Dal-mi, Ji-pyeong unexpectedly ran into Do-san in the lobby. Ji-pyeong asked Do-san why he was here. Only after learning that Do-san would return to America after his vacation ended did Ji-pyeong breathe a sigh of relief. Then the two of them started talking. Do-san saw the gift box in Ji-pyeong's hand. Do-san asked Ji-pyeong who he was going to give the gift to. Ji-pyeong was momentarily stunned. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to put the gift box on the table and pretend that his relationship with Dal-mi was developing very well. Then, Ji-pyeong said that he was preparing to give a gift to Dal-mi. Do-san was very disappointed when he heard that, but he pretended that nothing happened. Seeing Do-san's reaction, Ji-pyeong stood up. He intentionally invited Do-san to meet Dal-mi with him. Do-san also stood up, pretending that he had an appointment. He told Ji-pyeong that I couldn't go with you. Hearing that, Ji-pyeong turned around and left, leaving Do-san alone and extremely sad. Dal-mi stepped out of the elevator. Do-san coincidentally passed in front of her. When Dal-mi reacted, he was already far away. She hurriedly chased after Do-san. After searching for a while, Dal-mi once again saw that familiar figure. With great difficulty, she managed to catch up, so Dal-mi immediately reached out to pull Do-san back. She didn't expect that all the coffee would be spilled on her, and the other party was not Do-san at all. Seeing herself suddenly falling into such a miserable situation, Dal-mi was momentarily confused. She could only continuously apologize to the other party. At this moment, the phone suddenly rang. Dal-mi quickly picked up the phone, then didn't even bother to fix her clothes, and quickly ran back to the company. It turned out that they had just been attacked by a virus. All the documents had been encrypted. The other party demanded that their company pay $300 million within 12 hours, or this guy guy would delete the key to decrypt it. In this case, their company would lose all their data, and all their data on the autonomous vehicle division would disappear. All their investments would be in vain. They had reported it to the police, but it was useless. The police could not solve the problem immediately. The company's technical department said that the key code was too long, and it would take several days to crack it. She immediately suggested paying the hackers $300 million so they could get the decryption key and recover all their data. After all their algorithm development and car modifications had cost them $2 billion, so $300 million was considered very cheap. But all the company's money had been invested in new business, and they could not get that much cash now. Dal-mi felt like she was sitting on hot coals, calling one person after another, but to no avail. She was browsing through her phone contacts when she suddenly saw Ji-pyeong's number. Dal-mi remembered what he had said. He hoped that when she was in trouble and tired, the first person she would think of would be him. She hesitated for a moment. She was about to press the call button when coincidentally, a phone call came in. Dal-mi quickly picked up the phone. It was Do-san. It turned out that just now, when Dal-mi's old colleague was helping out, Chul-san was coincidentally also by the colleague's side. Chul-san had told Do-san about this. Hearing Do-san's voice again, Dal-mi was momentarily stunned and speechless. It took her a long time to react, and finally she couldn't help but burst into tears. Do-san comforted her and told her not to worry. He would be there in 20 minutes. Do-san quickly appeared. He immediately plugged in the USB drive and started working. The two technicians in the company felt very dissatisfied and angrily walked out. Chul-san soon appeared, followed by Yong-san. They worked together well, and in no time they found the decryption key and recovered all the data. Seeing that the problem was solved, Dal-mi could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She was so tired that she collapsed. Do-san quickly picked her up and carried her to the resting area. The others understood and left. After learning that Do-san was just on vacation and would return to the US in a week, Dal-mi felt very disappointed. She lowered her head to look at her clothes that were covered in coffee, and a button on her sleeve was missing. Dal-mi quickly turned her head away and frowned slightly. Her current appearance was truly miserable. Early the next morning, Ji-pyeong had just returned to the sandbox when he learned that Dal-mi's company had been hacked. He rushed to her office and asked her how things were going. Hearing Dal-mi say that the problem had been solved thanks to Do-san and his friends coming here to help, Ji-pyeong saw Do-san's jacket next to him and felt a little disappointed. He said that it was lucky. Then Ji-pyeong asked Dal-mi if she was okay. Dal-mi said that she felt very disappointed in herself. She didn't expect herself to be so miserable. She met Do-san again when she was at her most miserable. It was so embarrassing. She begged him not to tell anyone that she had cried. Ji-pyeong then went to pull down all the curtains and told Dal-mi to stay here and calm down and remember to lock the door. On this side, Do-san and his two friends were having breakfast. After a while of discussion, the three of them decided to stay in Korea to develop their careers. Do-san hurriedly ran to Dal-mi's office. He wanted to get his coat back and tell her about his decision. As soon as he got out of the elevator, he coincidentally ran into Ji-pyeong. Ji-pyeong held So-san's hand tightly. He wanted to talk to Do-san. Ji-pyeong asked Do-san if he was going to find Dal-mi. Do-san asked back what right he had to know about this. Unexpectedly, Ji-pyeong pretended that he had become Dal-mi's boyfriend. After Do-san got out of the elevator, Ji-pyeong felt that he had gone too far. He called Dal-mi to clarify everything. Just now, to prevent Do-san from coming to find her, he said a few words that made Do-san misunderstand. If she went out now, she could still find Do-san. Unexpectedly, Dal-mi said that she didn't need it anymore because she knew that Do-san was about to return to America. Do-san called her again, thinking that he would eventually return to America, and looking back at her miserable appearance at the moment, Dal-mi resolutely refused to answer the phone. Then, she turned off her phone. Do-san called again, and hearing the notification that the other end had turned off the phone, he sadly put the phone down. The little hope that had just been lit was extinguished again. After returning home, he sat there watching the floating ball for a long time, and he couldn't help but recall the scene when the two of them first met. In the end, the floating ball that symbolized their love was thrown into the trash. Just like that, everything ended. However, yesterday Dal-mi had cruelly rejected Do-san, but unexpectedly she came to ask for help today. It was very difficult to reach the top of the building. There were many investors here because of their reputation. Dal-mi wanted to go directly to the office to find Do-san, but unexpectedly someone stopped her and told her to stand in line. She could only call Do-san. When Do-san saw that Dal-mi was calling, he directly pressed the reject button. She sent him a message, but he didn't reply. After all the investors had left, Dal-mi's phone rang again. Do-san hesitated for a moment and finally hung up. Unexpectedly, Dal-mi was already standing at the door. The atmosphere immediately became awkward. He asked Dal-mi why she came here. Hearing Dal-mi say that she came here to invite them to work, Do-san immediately chased Chul-san and Yong-san out. Then he told Dal-mi that 3 years ago, she wanted to break up, so she said some words that hurt him a lot. It took him 3 years to accept that. He didn't want to continue like that. If they were no longer destined to meet, it would be better not to see each other again. Dal-mi said that now hearing those words made her feel sad. She asked if he felt the same way back then, and then she sincerely apologized to him. It turned out that a few days ago, the company's senior developers were lured away by someone else. In-jae told Dal-mi to invite Do-san's team. Only then did Dal-mi learn that Do-san wanted to stay in Korea, but she still didn't agree. Dal-mi thought that doing so would delay them. In-jae was extremely extremely angry. She didn't expect Dal-mi to think that her company was delaying Do-san's team. In-jae blamed Dal-mi for working based on her emotions and not being worthy of being a director. In-jae gave Dal-mi two choices. One was to invite Do-san's team to work in the company, and two was to be fired. In-jae said that she didn't need a director who would hinder the company. Dal-mi was extremely angry. She thought that her sister was threatening her. Unexpectedly, even her mother and grandmother didn't support her. They both said that Dal-mi was letting her personal emotions affect the company. As a director, if she thought like that, how could the company develop? So she reluctantly came here to find Do-san, but she didn't expect that Do-san didn't even give her a chance to speak and directly refused. Thinking about what Do-san said, she felt like she was about to go crazy. The night Do-san returned home, Do-san's father helped him pick up the baseball and put it in a transparent box. His father said that such a precious thing must be kept carefully. The next day, in order to forget about Dal-mi, Do-san decided to follow his father's example when he was young. He cycled to his deceased uncle's house, wanting to use his physical fatigue to reduce the pain in his heart and drown out all his worries. After going through many difficulties, he finally arrived at his uncle's house. Do-san was exhausted and directly lay down on the bed outside the house. But unexpectedly, the more tired his body was, the clearer everything in his mind became. He didn't know when he fell asleep, but when he woke up, it was already dark. At this moment, Dal-mi was limping towards him. Do-san thought he was hungry and had an illusion. He drank a few mouthfuls of water, not expecting that the person was really Dal-mi. Do-san stood up and wanted to leave. Dal-mi immediately held him back and said something to him. As a result, they returned together. Ji-pyeong and Do-san met in the main hall. Ji-pyeong called Do-san to stop. Ji-pyeong wanted to get the old letters back from Do-san. Although Do-san was reluctant, he finally agreed. But the condition was that Ji-pyeong had to return the aroid poem that Dal-mi had given to Do-san. Do-san returned home and sorted through the old letters and found a letter that said, "To the person I love." He couldn't help but open the letter and read it. At this time, Ji-pyeong's phone suddenly called, asking where the two of them would meet. Do-san said that he didn't need the aroid poem anymore and just pretended that nothing had happened. Do-san then decisively hung up, and Ji-pyeong continued to call, but he didn't pick up. Unexpectedly, Ji-pyeong carried the aroid poem and went straight to Do-san's house. The two were half drunk and half sober. Do-san said that he admired Ji-pyeong very much. Do-san had once asked Dal-mi why she liked him, and Dal-mi said that it was because he was her first love. But in fact, the person who wrote the letters to her when she was young was Ji-pyeong. The letters Ji-pyeong wrote comforted her for a long time. When Do-san found out, he was very jealous. He tried to love Dal-mi to defeat the beautiful memories between the two. But he found out that these things were not enough, so the two men confided in each other all night. Early the next morning, Ji-pyeong woke up and found himself at Do-san's house. He got up and left the room, coincidentally hearing Do-san's mother asking him if she should add chili to the fish soup. Did Ji-pyeong like spicy food? Do-san asked her mother if she had soybean curd. Hearing that Ji-pyeong liked it, Do-san was planning to pack some for him to take home. Ji-pyeong remained silent and quietly returned to Do-san's room. When Do-san came in and called Ji-pyeong to drink the hangover soup, he was already dressed neatly. Ji-pyeong suddenly got angry and said, "I'll take the letter and the potted plant back. Even if I took everything, I still wouldn't be able to compare to you because of your slowness. I originally intended to pretend to be stupid until the end, but there was no other way. Listen carefully. I'll only say this once. Get rid of your inferiority complex towards me and raise your self-esteem. When you see Dal-mi again, you'll know who Dal-mi likes. You can win the memories between the two of us with just those hands." Hearing Ji-pyeong's words, Do-san immediately ran to find Dal-mi. Seeing Dal-mi, Do-san once again asked her why she liked him. She said that liking someone doesn't need a reason. Hearing this, Do-san was extremely happy. Ji-pyeong accidentally met Dal-mi in the elevator. Although he was a little embarrassed, he didn't try to avoid her anymore. Ji-pyeong said that although he had read the letters she wrote, he had never come to see her in the past 15 years. The day Do-san finished reading those letters, he took the initiative to come to see her. So the Do-san in the letter was not Ji-pyeong at all. Ji-pyeong said that she didn't need to feel guilty, nor did she need to feel self-blame. Hearing these words, Dal-mi felt relieved. In-jae had gone to find the sandbox representative to ask for advice on fundraising, but unexpectedly the representative said that she couldn't help In-jae this time because this time they wanted to invest in In-jae's Chung-myung company. The representative then went to find Ji-pyeong and told him that she believed that Chung-myung's company's potential was much higher than what they thought. The company will soon be successful, so she asked him to settle this matter as soon as possible. Ji-pyeong was about to refuse, but he couldn't refuse. He could only ask Do-san out. Ji-pyeong didn't hold out much hope either. He thought that Do-san would definitely refuse, but Ji-pyeong didn't expect Do-san to accept directly. Ji-pyeong asked Do-san that Ji-pyeong had rejected Do-san last time, but this time, Do-san had agreed to accept the investment. Do-san said that last time it was because Ji-pyeong pitied them, but this time it was because Do-san thought that investing in Chung-myung company was a real investment. After saying that, Do-san raised his hand in front of Ji-pyeong. They had successfully cooperated. Thank you for watching the whole video. See you all in the next videos.